Welcome to The Breakdown, where we discuss important topics of the day with allegiance only to reason, evidence, and a willingness to consider new ideas with an open mind. I'm James Sayer, your host. Tonight is the exciting holiday special and season 1 finale. That's right, this is the last episode of the season. Then we're taking a brief hiatus to recharge and regroup and begin planning for season 2 of The Breakdown, which will be starting back up in January 2021. But tonight, we have a mashup, of different topics for discussion to give you a nice variety to get this holiday season into high gear for you. But first, a correction. In the previous episode on the 2020 elections, I referred to an excellent article in the Washington Post about some very serious fundamental problems with our current political polling by pollster David Hill. I initially named him correctly, but then proceeded to mistakenly refer to him as Harris, not Hill, a number of times. And I was very careless on my part, Mr. Hill. I apologize. So, really excellent article, by the way, called The Dirty Little Secret Pollsters Need to Own Up To. So if you get a chance, that's in the Post from November. Check that out. So, my mea culpa out of the way here. Let's go ahead and get started with topic number 1 of the season finale of The Breakdown. Topic number 1 is extraterrestrial update. Yes, you heard that right. Get out your tinfoil hats, babies, because we're talking about extraterrestrials. Oh, yeah. So, this week in the Hebrew language newspaper Yediot Aharonot, Haim Esht, a former Israeli military space program official who's now 87, claimed in an interview that a galactic federation of aliens have been working with the U.S. and Israel on space travel for many years, and that the aliens actually have a contract with the United States government to do this work, and that they actually have a base on Mars, where there are also the aliens are there, and the American astronauts, he claims, are there working as well. He claimed that they're working with us to understand the universe and that they want to help us, but that the aliens feel that humanity is not yet ready for us or for them, for the aliens. They're not, that we're not ready to be aware that they actually exist. And he went so far as even to say that President Trump almost told the world about aliens, that basically he's, I guess, implying here that presidents know about this, which is, makes sense. It's not surprising. I believe years ago, President Carter had said when he first became president, and he asked to see all the information about UFOs, and he said, he didn't say anything specific other than he said, you would not believe what he saw and what he knew. And so anyway, that's interesting. But anyway, they think that we're not ready, right? We're not ready to deal with the fact that aliens exist. Now this interview was done this past week, and he was being interviewed for the upcoming release of his new book. He's releasing a book called The Universe Beyond the Horizon. So who knows? Maybe there's more interesting details or claims. There's obviously no evidence offered that he provided, but these are just claims that he made. But it's obviously very interesting because this guy was a very high-ranking official in their military space agency. This guy has serious credentials. He's not just some dude off the street. So you have to give that a lot more credence than you would maybe someone else. And the fact that there have been other government officials, other government employees, or contractors working with certain government organizations that have spoken about their belief that we may be in possession of alien technology. And we discussed that in an earlier episode on the breakdown about extraterrestrials. But they never go so far as to say everything that Haim Esht goes to say. He goes all the way out there and says, dude, we're on a base. we're already working with them on Mars out there. So who knows? I mean, this is really crazy stuff. And who knows what the truth is? Is this some weird, Israeli, intelligence Mossad kind of misinformation campaign that they got something else going on that they don't want us to pay attention to, so they throw this out there to distract us. I mean, I'm reaching. I have no idea. That's wild speculation on my part. But, intelligence agencies and governments have been known to do these kinds of things on occasion. And it's, not it's an intelligent tactic to use, that you just, and one that's been, uh, time, time tested and time honored, that you distract people with one occurrence, or one distracting idea or event, and while that's going on, everyone else is paying attention. That gives you a lot more latitude to do a bunch of other stuff when no one is looking, right? So always keep that in mind, because that is always that tactic is always available. It's always available to the powerful because they have the resources and they have the power to use that type of approach. So you always want to kind of keep that in mind when you're looking at these sort of considerations. But the idea that extraterrestrials are here is not. We don't know. We don't know. Now that there may be people within our government who do know whether this is true or not. There may be, and if there are, it's not very many. It may, there's probably clearances that none of us are aware of that exist that maybe only a handful or a couple dozen people know of that have access to that type of information. But this when people make these kind of claims, you can't just dismiss them out of hand. Maybe he's crazy. Maybe he went crazy. He is 87. Maybe he has some Alzheimer's or some type of dementia issues. But who knows? Maybe not. I mean, that's an assumption that I'm making with absolutely no evidence. He could be sharp as a tack. So who knows? It could be that he's telling the truth, and that's what he is saying in his interview, that he no longer has anything to fear. He feels that the climate has changed enough now, and people are open enough to the concept of the possibility that aliens exist, and that obviously he's 87, his career is over, his credentials are well established, so he doesn't really have any repercussions to fear anymore, like he might if he was just starting out, or had a family and middle age. That might be different, but he doesn't really have much to lose at this point, so there's nothing to really stop him from coming out and telling the truth, assuming this is the truth, which we don't know. Or it could also just be a shameless attempt by a man to grab, incredible, attention from these kinds of claims for his book, because he's got a book coming out, and what could be better publicity than coming out and doing an interview and making these sorts of unbelievable, mind-blowing claims. I mean, I want to get the book just to see what else is in there. So it could be a shameless marketing attempt. We have no idea. But, this is speculation time here. I've already said, obviously, we do not know the deal. But let's just consider, what if he is telling the truth? Okay, what if he's being straight? And what if all that is true? And how long have they been here? How long have they had this contract with the United States government? And how long have they been working with us and with Israel? And how long has this been going on? Did this start recently? Did this happen after we used the atomic bomb on Japan at the end of World War II? And they realized it's like, oh, we've crossed the threshold. They need to, meet up with us and have a little discussion, take us by the hand. I mean, on the face of it, it feels and seems like, if that were true, and this is happening and they're working with us, that's encouraging, right? That they haven't destroyed us or attempted to enslave us, so far as we're aware, right? Is that a long-term goal, and they're coming on right now as friends, and they want to ease in, right? We have obviously no idea. And if you're talking about a super advanced society that may be tens of thousands, hundreds, or even millions of years ahead of us, and there's probably the way he spoke of it, there were different races of aliens. It's not just one race. That there's a galactic federation. That's what he said. So that there's a federation of different species of aliens working together across the galaxy. Um, so, I mean, it is a big universe. It is possible, and we've only just begun to understand even just basic things about science. It was just 200 years ago we thought that bleeding was a legitimate medical cure for all kinds of diseases, right? I mean, it was just like 300-400 years ago we were still burning people at the stake thinking they were witches. Where, I mean, they still got people trying to cure people of their gayness. Like there's still a lot of stuff that we're we got half the population that refuses to wear a mask and believe that that uh, not wearing a mask is gonna stop. Isn't gonna help prevent those germs from reaching someone else. Regardless of all the scientific information, all the experts out there, you still got a huge chunk of our population that refuses to acknowledge it. And so maybe he's right. We're not ready. Look at how we treat each other, right? Look at how we deal with one another. Look at how we're behaving right now in our country and across the world. Our failures to cooperate and to treat each other with respect and to treat each other fairly and to share share fairly resources, right? That are needed by people, and for the powerful to take far more than they need or they deserve at the expense of those who do important work but are underpaid. And I'm talking about like our frontline workers who we know are underpaid. That's a great example. But you've got the CEOs and major corporations making more money than ever before, while these people struggle to get by, and Congress still hasn't passed a stimulus bill. So obviously we're going off on a tangent here, but you see where I'm going. We can't even look at how we treat each other. Look at how we act. Maybe they're right not to want to have anything to do with this. Maybe they're right. We're not ready. So, but let's speculate some more. Did they find out? Was the nuclear bomb, when we detonated it, was that what caught their attention? Did they help us develop it? Did they know we were racing against time against Japan and Germany to develop the atom bomb? And they intervened to help us close the gap and beat them to it? We have no idea, obviously. But again, returning, there's lots of stories and lots of speculation. Most of it based on, just wild conjecture. It's just wild conjecture. But there are a lot of historical cave paintings and different artifacts throughout the world depicting things that could easily be interpreted as extraterrestrial visitation. Now, that may not be true. It could be their depictions of their gods, or other supernatural forces that they were trying to come to an understanding of. But it could also be their representation of encounters with alien life. And there have been many theories that with little to no evidence to support them, that they've been involved in human history for thousands of years, and some saying even hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of years, that they may have indeed colonized us. Obviously, that perhaps their intervention explains the missing link, that they took 5 million years ago they took an ape and they manipulated the genetics of the ape. Perhaps they combined some alien DNA with the ape and they came up with a human. Now, obviously, that's crazy talk, but it's not impossible, especially with what we know and what we understand about genetics now, and that we know that genes can be manipulated and changed for the better, potentially, or worse. That things are not genetically set. there is a code that can be altered, and an advanced society, far beyond our understanding, would very likely be very capable in those areas. So anyway, really, really interesting topic. We have no idea, but I'm just going to throw this out there and we're going to move on, is that all this stuff that's been coming out, right? There's been more and more, like all the release of those, the video footage from the Pentagon, other people from the Pentagon coming out and saying that there's, there's been a lot of, there's been this agency doing this UFO research, trying to, over recent years, and that it was disbanded, or was it really disbanded? It's kind of murky. It's a little fuzzy. But now there's this new group within the Pentagon doing it that has a lot of the same people from the old group. There's just a lot we don't know that these people know, but a lot probably they don't know too. So I had a feeling, and it's just a feeling, but with this much stuff coming out, why is it coming out now? Right? And this isn't small, fakey stuff. This isn't cheesy, bad, hoaxy stuff. Like, that stuff they have on those videos from those, like, Navy fighter pilots encountering those aircraft are quite compelling. Some of the testimony from those pilots is pretty impressive. And then when you hear the testimony from some of these folks that worked on the previous UFO investigation team, I forget the name right now, that is also pretty compelling. And, this guy's testimony is it's sensational and it's bonkers, but, it does make you kind of wonder. So who knows? I get the sense that this is coming out because it has to come out. And it has to come out because perhaps, and maybe this is crazy, but maybe that that contact is not far away. And this is the early stages of setting the table for us, setting us up for the reveal. And they got to do it gradually. They can't do it all at once. And we're in ridiculous shape right now. You have to think there is a possibility that they're worried about the destabilization of society, right? If suddenly aliens exist and we acknowledge it, and that we've been working with them for how long, a lot of people will start questioning the whole basis of everything that we've ever believed. A lot of people will question their religions, the foundations of a lot of our beliefs, and foundations of some aspects of our social contract, which I think ultimately it shouldn't really matter. A contract's a contract. Like, the agreements have to be honored. And I think that's going to be probably one of those universal things that's going to have to probably exist between planets and different alien species anyway, for people to be able to trust each other and work together. You have to be able to honor certain things. So I think the social contract is going to be one of those universal things we cannot get away from. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But it's like, it's also similar to like the awareness that is changing, that like with the cell phone cameras, the fact that cell phone cameras are everywhere and everyone has one now is what really helped make it clear to everyone that a lot of black guys were getting killed unnecessarily, and they were being brutalized by police unfairly, and that racist policing still exists, and a lot of people just didn't believe it. But you cannot, confronted with the footage, that's what led to a lot of these protests. The Freddie Gray case was the most stark, but there have been so many others, that the prevalence of cameras everywhere made that possible, right? That it could no longer be denied. It couldn't be swept under the rug. And it's kind of the same thing too. It's like there's too many people around now with too many cameras, getting too much footage, and all this footage is now available. There's too many people aware of it. And too many people have been aware of it for some time, that people are starting to talk now. That it's reaching that point of that saturation point, that it's reaching the time where they're going to have to tell us. Uh, and so who knows? We'll see. Maybe it's just silly fantasizing, but it's interesting to think about. So anyway, moving on. I'm sorry, I spent way too much time on that, but it's pretty interesting to me. This is topic number 2, and we call this the good news update. All right. We've talked a lot about problems over season 1, right? About all the different problems that we're facing and how can we deal with them and fix them and analyze them. Well, we're just going to look at some good news. Here's some good things that happened in this horrible year of 2020. And here we go. We're going to look at it. Despite all the insanity, mayhem, chaos, there have been a lot of great things that have come from this year. And so the first one is charities. All right. According to the Chronicle of Philanthropy, charitable giving for the first half of 2020 was up 7.5% over the first half of 2019, the previous year. Now, COVID-19, the Black Lives Matter protests in the summer, and also the $300 charitable deduction in the CARES Act stimulus bill that was passed earlier this year. These are things that these are the factors that that have been largely cited by the people looking at this and the the philanthropy industry that they're looking at. These are the main factors that drove the increase in giving this year, and that's really nice to see, right? Of all the rough, tough things happening, horrible things people are doing to each other, talking to each other, and saying that people are giving more and they're helping out more, and so that's really great to see, that kindness and that generosity. But we can also see from this that even with the big increase, that charitable giving it's not enough. It's not even nearly enough to address all the serious problems of deprivation, of deep and pervasive poverty and inequality that we have in this country, especially in the middle of a global pandemic and a struggling economy right now with millions of Americans out of work. So that's why some type of government safety net is required, and it's why all advanced countries have one, even ours, though ours is stingy by comparison to most industrialized countries. But anyway, the other one, here's another really good piece of good news. COVID vaccines, we got them. They're coming. FDA just approved yesterday the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine, and the first shipments of the vaccine should be delivered this Monday. All right, that's awesome. Now it's going to take a long time to disperse that, but that's a good start. Now there's another version of the vaccine from Moderna that will likely receive approval within the U.S. Very soon. It is being fast-tracked as well. Now there's another vaccine, another version from AstraZeneca, but approval for that in the U.S. is still a ways off. So we'll see what happens with that. But we got two coming, it looks like. One for sure, and one most likely on the way here pretty quick. And they're going to have to prioritize, who gets them. But this is amazing. It's really, within about 10 months, 3 different pharmaceutical companies had developed workable vaccines for the virus. For a virus that no one really knew anything about at all. So they basically, from scratch, came up with a vaccine in 10 months on the fly. I mean, that says a lot. That's pretty impressive. And that shows that, it shows what we can do when we're under the gun. And it also, maybe Big Pharma, for all of its overcharging for its product, is not always such a bad guy, right? It's Big Pharma is going to be coming to save the day. We got to give them credit for that. We just got to make sure they don't, charge us an arm and a leg for everything, and that we're able to take our medicines and still be able to pay our bills and not have to eat, cat food or something. So anyway, this is, Big Pharma is important, right? They have their place, and they should be paid well for a very important service that they provide. Important medicines for us, new medicines, new research. But we also the people help provide a lot of that research money. There's a lot of government research that goes into the development of a lot of new drugs that then big pharmaceuticals develop. So they need to acknowledge that they benefit from a lot of government research and a lot of government research grants. Uh, and they need to come down on a lot of their prices and acknowledge the contribution that the public and the government has already made to their work. And it is not just big pharma that has produced this, but it is also the people who have funded a lot of the research at NIH and other laboratories with government research grants that have developed a lot of the important research that these pharmaceutical companies then use. So that's got to be something we work out here, starting when Biden becomes president. So anyway, just don't, Big Pharma, thank you so much. Just don't gouge us on the medicines that are essential for our health and existence. People are really tired of that. And if you don't rein yourselves in, people in one fashion or another are going to do it for you. Anyway, here's another really good thing that happened. All the new safety precautions that are really good that to have really during the cold and flu season, if not year round. We're talking about like sneeze guards, the face shields, masks. I mean, it just makes sense, like wear a mask in cold and flu season, right? When you're going to be close to people. You don't have to do it all the time, but, I'm just down the road. It's not a bad idea. Oh, I got a cold. I'm going to strap on a mask so I don't blow my tainted, nasal spray over people. It's like, yeah, it's a good idea. I'm not feeling too good. Maybe I'm going out. I'm going to see a lot of people at the club tonight. But I'm going to put on a mask so I don't give everybody my flu or my cold. It's like, that's kind of smart. And it makes you think, why the hell did we think of that already? Well, a lot of the Asian cultures have been doing that for a long time. And so let us learn from them. Let us see that, they were onto something there, right? So let us learn from other people that are doing things right. But these are things that are cheap, easy solutions, right? Just that plexiglass shield between you and the cashier, that's so smart and so easy and hardly costs anything. But think of the savings, right? Not just now with COVID, but keep that stuff up, right? That's gonna, like, over the long haul, all the colds and flus, think of how many needless deaths could be ended, or just the productivity gains from all the people that don't get sick from colds and from flus and from other viruses, because we act like smart human beings that are aware that germs are everywhere all the time and that they're part of the struggle of life, and that there's a battle on this earth to survive, and that part of this battle is viruses and bacteria attacking us at all times, and part of us being healthy is doing smart things to not get ourselves sick or get other people sick, right? So yeah, these precautions, let's keep them. That's a good thing that we've been made aware of, and just diligent cleaning and washing your hands and coughing into your elbow, the inside of your elbow. These are smart things. I've seen a lot of people not do them, even now, amazingly. And it's like, yeah, we're definitely not ready for the aliens. But anyway, this is another good thing. All right, here's another one. We learned what things could be like with drastically reduced pollution. Do you remember the early months of the global economic shutdown when the pandemic was just getting going big time? And it was tough. It was tough on everybody, but everything was shut down. Do you remember how, the rates were so much lower than they are now. The transmission rates and death rates were so low by comparison because of that shutdown. Obviously, we couldn't stay shut down forever. But remember how clean things were? I don't know if you remember this, but there's a lot of footage like in India and China and other places. In India, people who had lived in places their whole life had never seen the Himalayas. And for the first time, they were actually able to see the Himalayas towering over them. And they hadn't even been able to see them before, right? Because the pollution was so bad. Or how clear the water in Venice was, right? Because tourism was shut down, and were all these boats going through, and just all the oil and gas getting in there. It's just like little things like that. And obviously, we can't shut things down. But what if we could? What if we could clean up our act? That's what things could be like, right? You could have clean air. You could have a giant mega city full, teeming of 20 million people, and you could still have beautiful, clean skies. Now, it's a tall order, and it's not going to happen overnight. But it shows what's possible if we could. It shows us the end state that we can get there. And we couldn't maintain the shutdown, obviously. But what if we could get to a point where we reduce pollution emissions so much, right, that your water always looked clean, your lake, your rivers always looked awesome, right? Your air smelled good. That would be great, and it's not impossible. And we know that because we've seen it. All right. We just got to get on the stick with our technology in reducing pollution and our carbon emissions. All right. And obviously addressing climate change in an urgent, extremely urgent fashion. So anyway, moving on, another really good thing. Basically, COVID-19 it's exposed our need for quality, affordable healthcare for all Americans, right? The pandemic has exposed how inadequate coverage is for people, and that everyone needs to have healthcare, and that they need to be able to go see a doctor, when they get sick, when they get a virus, when they get a deadly virus, and you just don't know when that's going to be, and that this is something that we all need, and that the system was woefully unprepared for this for this pandemic, and so there are a lot of serious changes are going to have to be made to the healthcare system when Joe Biden becomes president. So anyway, another really, really good thing that we saw was all right. So the election crisis and the Trump presidency, right? They've actually shed light on a lot of weaknesses in our government institutions, and that's terrible, right? It is. It's bad, right? But it's an opportunity that we can now see that we can get to fixing to protect from another far more dangerous version of Trump. If we make these changes, like a lot of changes, like enforcing the emoluments clause of the Constitution, or making it a federal requirement that all presidential candidates disclose their tax history, right? Strengthen, Congress's subpoena power. So if they subpoena you, you have to comply, and if you don't, increase the penalties for not complying. Improve protections for federal whistleblowers when they expose wrongdoing, so that they're not bullied or threatened on the job, or they're unfairly terminated from their job. And strengthen Hatch Act enforcement and penalties. And these are just some of the changes. There's a lot more that need to be made to ensure that a corrupt president can no longer just run unimpeded as he breaks laws and his party just repeatedly turns a blind eye. The system has been set up under the assumption that people in both parties would honor certain moral standards and codes, and honor basic tenets of reason and fairness and decency. And Trump and the Republican Party for the last 4 years violated those basic principles. And now we're aware of it. We see the problems, and now we can do something to fix them. And that is a very good thing. Also, the shifting of the electoral landscape, right? You got Arizona and Georgia that went blue, shockingly, this year. And you've got, things in transition. There's Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, which had gone for Trump in the last election, went for Biden in this election. So my takeaway from this is a fluctuating, shifting electorate landscape is good. That means that things are changing. And as painful and annoying as change is, and it is, even good change is, that it's necessary, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing that we're changing, and it teaches us not to take anything for granted, right? You can't just assume that the South will always be red, because it's not. It's starting to turn blue in certain parts. And you can't assume that the Midwest or the Northeast is always going to be blue, because New Hampshire is a pretty conservative state. And like I said, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania were always considered part of that blue wall for Democrats, and that fell apart in 2016. So it's a good lesson. It's a good lesson for us to learn that we cannot take each other for granted. And just because you voted for us last time doesn't mean you're going to vote for us this time. We got to keep coming through for you, right? We've got to deliver the goods. The politicians, they have to deliver. They have to give you what you need, all right? So that's good. Anyway, we all appreciate, here's another one. We all appreciate human contact so much more, I think, now. Don't you? That all this time we've been forced to stay apart, and we can't, be close to each other, or even be in the same room with each other, or even come see each other, that we appreciate because of that isolation. That I think a lot of us really do appreciate our friendships and our relationships that much more. That's a good thing to hold on to and not forget about, to take away from this. Right? From all of the horrible things that have come from this year, and as sucky as this year has absolutely been, and I think all of you out there are 100% with me on this, as bad as it was, that all the good things that were taken from this, let's take them all. Let's squeeze the juice out of it. Let's get all the good that we can from 2020 to make all the crap that we've had to go through. Let's make it worth it. Okay? So, yeah. We appreciate human contact with each other more, even introverts. Even introverts, I think. Now that's progress. So here's another one. All right. A lot of us are not going to have to commute anymore. That's just true, right? I think that from all this we've seen, a lot of jobs can be done from home. And so there's just going to be a lot of folks that aren't going to have to go to the office any longer. And, that really could cut down on traffic. That could cut down on waste of office space. That could free up office space for other things like housing, like affordable housing. Imagine that, affordable housing. Wouldn't that be crazy? So these are all really good things that we should be grateful for. And I thought it was important that we talk about them briefly. These are things that we should keep in mind as we think about what 2020 was like, but also like what we're going to do with 2021, and let's be grateful for the good things that have happened, and let's take these lessons and let's apply them and make 2021, as great a year as 2020 was sucky. All right. So anyway, moving on, it's time for topic number 3. Yes. And this is a special one. This is the breakdowns 2020 honor roll. Yes, the 2020 honor roll. Very special. Some people, you see, do extraordinary things to stand head and shoulders above the rest. And so here are some of those folks in 2020. First, Alexander Vindman. Now, he's a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel and a former United States National Security Council officer who actually worked in the White House. But he actually testified before Congress this year about the Trump administration's attempts to get the Ukraine government to investigate Hunter and Joe Biden and Hunter Biden's involvement with Burisma, a company there in Ukraine, essentially in order to harm Biden's chances in the 2020 election. Now, he was pushed out of his job at the White House for testifying, and he actually received much abuse and many death threats, actually. And he's since retired from the Army, and he's now working at Lawfare as their Pritzker Military Fellow. So congratulations on your new role, Mr. Vindman. They're lucky to have you. Another person on the Roll of Honor for 2020 is Dr. Fauci. I'm sure that's not a big surprise to a lot of you. But not just Dr. Fauci, also all the folks at NIH and the Center for the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and also all the other lab scientists working to fight COVID-19 and the other deadly viruses. But Dr. Fauci, he is the personification for us in this exercise of all these people, and he's been front and center out there trying to communicate what needs to be done and what people need to do to stay safe. And he's received a lot of abuse and threats and unfair and ridiculous criticism for just doing his job and trying to help people. And sadly, a large portion of the population has not heeded his advice, which has allowed the transmission of the virus to skyrocket across this country. Now it's taking more than 3,000 lives a day. But for Dr. Fauci doing everything in his power to get the word out on what people need to do to be safe and stay healthy and not transmit the virus, and for putting up with ridiculous abuse and threading the needle so well that he's been able to maintain his post and continue to do his job in spite of all the challenges, is truly an impressive feat. And we say thank you. Thank you, Dr. Fauci, and thank you to all of the scientists and virologists doing this important research work. You are, some of the true heroes of this battle against the coronavirus, and certainly we couldn't do it without you. So, a deep thanks to all of you. Next up, the next person on the Roll of Honor is Senator Mitt Romney. Yes, Mitt Romney, the first GOP senator to acknowledge Joe Biden's victory over Donald Trump in the presidential election. Now, not a big fan of his politics and never have been, but there's no denying that Mitt Romney has courage and character, just like his former colleague Jeff Flake. Also not a fan of his extremely conservative beliefs either, but clearly a man of integrity who was one of the few GOP senators to stand up against many of Trump's abuses, when almost no one else in the GOP would do so. And it cost him his Senate seat, and he gave it up because he knew that there are some things that are more important than your job or your career, and that's called your honor, and that's called your soul. And once you sell them, it's really, really hard to get them back. So thank you, Mitt Romney, and thank you, Jeff Flake. Thank you, Jeff Flake. I just wanted to say thank you. I know Jeff Flake didn't do anything huge in 2020, but I just like mentioning him because I like him. I think he's a good man. Anyway, election workers, GOP state election officials who certified Biden's win, even though they were under enormous pressure and even under threats of violence, under pressure not to certify his win, doing their jobs. All right? You too are on the Roll of Honor. Postal workers who made sure the mail-in votes got where they were supposed to go, despite Trump's efforts to slow mail delivery, right? And thank you to the police who protect them, who protected these election officials and election workers and made their safety and their ability to do the job safely possible. To all of you, you too have a special place on this Roll of Honor. Thank you. Next, very important group to thank here are all the frontline workers, and there's a bunch of you, all right, everywhere that have no choice at all but to expose. They have no choice but to expose themselves to the coronavirus every day just to make a living and to keep our society running. All right, they have proven their importance and their worth and their necessity to our society, and they need to be rewarded equitably for it, and a lot of them just have not. All right, they do the hard, dirty, difficult jobs that have to be done and are generally just not well paid. They struggle to pay their bills, often can't afford proper health or dental care. All right, it's time to start paying people and treating people better. All right, just think, okay? Just think how many of our problems that could solve. All right, who else? Who else is on the Roll of Honor? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll try and speed it up, but these are so good I can't help it. Also on the Roll of Honor, the peaceful Black Lives Matter and social justice protesters of the second half of 2020. That's right. You kept us paying attention to the racist injustices in policing that had been going on for far too long. And for doing that, for keeping the intensity and keeping it up for weeks and weeks and months, that was a lot of hard work. And our country does owe you a debt of thanks for your service in that regard. Just lose that defund the police slogan. Please. All right? Focus on serious police reform, ending or reducing qualified immunity for police. All right? Renegotiate the union contracts if you have to. All right? Develop community reinvestment programs that take some of that money if you need to from the police. All right? But likely, if you want better police, you're going to have to pay more for it. Right? If you want police and you also want mental health professionals going on calls, that's going to cost more. You're going to have to pay for that. All right. So just remember, keep that in mind, right? Push to de-escalate and demilitarize police departments. Absolutely. But please just toss that awful slogan, which has such low public approval for very obvious reasons. All right. Gallup in July, all right, did a poll. 22% of Black Americans support the defund the police slogan. All right. If 22% of Black Americans only 22% support defund the police, you know that slogan is a disaster. So run from it, please. I beg of you. All right. Go with this slogan instead. This is my gift to BLM. This is my gift to you all. Okay. Go with this. Reboot the police. Reboot. All right. You know it's good. It fits our tech centric, computer centric world. They just need a reboot. All right. We got to reboot the police, and that entails a lot. It's a big reboot. All right. But defund means you're gonna that's like abolish. That's like take their money away. They don't exist anymore. All right. And just please stop using the defund the police thing. But thank you for your service. All right. Keep protesting. Every time the cops cross the line, keep protesting. Just keep it peaceful. All right. Most cops, I really do think, are good. I've had really good experiences with cops most of my life. I've never really had any serious problems. Now, I'm obviously a white man, so you could say, well, obviously, that's why. But, I mean, I got to represent and say they've always been really fair to me, right? And I've always been respectful to them, and I've always had a fair deal with the police, right? But I understand it's a completely different thing if you're a Black man in the United States. And, I mean, we have the video footage to prove it. So, thank you again, and keep up the good work. Just stop with the defund the police nonsense, please. All right, who else on the roll of honor? Courageous politicians like Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who have stood up against terrorism, tyranny, and COVID-19. Yes, people actually, there was a group of 4 guys who were going to try and kidnap her and possibly even kill her, right? And wanted to try and start some kind of a civil war. We've got governors just trying to do their jobs to keep people safe, and she didn't back down. She's still she's still enforcing her safety measures and her lockdown, her at least partial lockdown measures and social distancing. All states and localities have their different approach, and we really needed a national approach. We really needed a strong president to come in here and say, look, we're all going to do this the same way so we don't spread it across state lines to each other. That never happened. But the governors who are doing their best are the ones who are trying to get as many rules in place to keep people, keep restaurants from I know the shutdown's terrible, and I think closing things down is bad too. But the smart thing of having half capacity, right? Or open seating. These things are smart and they're good. And sometimes shutdowns are just inevitable. It has to be done. All right. And funding needs to be more funding needs to be provided for people who suffer from shutdowns. It's businesses, right, and individuals, and that funding has been scant. But most of that funding comes from the federal government, and always has. And they have been the ones who dropped the ball. And we can blame Trump, and we can blame Congress because they're both guilty, right? And you know, so we can blame them all. And it's really seriously, Mitch McConnell and Trump are the most to blame because the Democrats have repeatedly come forward with offers for a stimulus bill, but they have rejected some offers that were just simply considered simply too low. But I'll acknowledge that Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats do deserve some criticism because they haven't gotten a deal yet. And I know Trump's a lunatic, and I know that Mitch McConnell is about as unethical and heartless as you can imagine as a person. But you got to make a deal. You got to get the money that you can get and get it out to people. People need that cash. They're running out of it, and time is out. Sometimes you just gotta take what you can get. But I respect the fact that Democrats didn't just take a pittance, right? That they're fighting for more. And I think they're going to prevail, and I sure hope so, because people need this money, right? And Mitch McConnell and Trump need to stop being stingy about providing assistance to people in need right now. You got to help us get through this COVID-19. Once everybody gets the vaccine, then we can really start running things right again. But until then, things are going to be a mess. People are out of work. People need to pay their rent. And it is the government's job to step in and intervene. So Trump and McConnell, do your jobs, right? And Democrats and Pelosi, please negotiate, right? Please talk with these despicable people that I know you can't stand, but deal with them anyway. Make the deals and concessions that you have to up to a point. But it's got to be done, all right? Got to pull the trigger. People are hurting, and you got to make it happen. So anyway, that was my thank you to all the courageous politicians like Governor Whitmer that are doing their part and that are standing up against people that are threatening them, right, and protesting around their homes, right, or coming to their buildings protesting with weapons. That's not really a protest. When you show up with when a bunch of people show up with automatic weapons or semi-automatic assault style weapons at your house or at your place of business, that's actually terrorism. That's not an actual protest, just so you know. Once you've done that, you've become a terrorist. So, just so you're aware. Anyway, here's another one. I just keep going on. I won't stop. This is a different one. Alec Baldwin and Scarlett Johansson, all right? They get a special mention for sticking by their friend Woody Allen, all right? Now, there's been a lot of pressure from Hollywood and the media and the left for them to disavow their association with Woody because of all the allegations of the allegations from his daughter Dylan from over 20 years ago that he had sexually molested her. But there were two separate investigations, one by police and one by the investigative unit from the hospital that examined Dylan back in the day, and neither of them found evidence of any abuse. Right? There's been a lot of claims made by members of that family, conflicting claims, and the simple truth of the matter is that there's no hard evidence at all that Woody did anything. Now, he may have. There's just no evidence of it. We do not know, and that's the truth. Like so many things that happen privately between people and within families, we just don't know what happened, and we're not given to know. It's not for us to know. It's really a family matter. That's their business, not ours. And we really probably should just stay the hell out of it. But anyway, whatever the case, Alec and ScarJo, they stood by their friend. In spite of the pressure, it would have been a lot easier for them to just disavow Woody, like pretty much everyone else did that ever worked with him. And say, oh, how terrible he was. It's like, you don't know what he did. None of these people know. They may suspect it and they may think it, and it's their right to believe that. But they don't know any more than anyone else. There's only two people that know, and that's Woody and Dylan. Those are the only two. Alec and ScarJo know this, and they know Woody Allen as a friend, and they chose to stand by him. regardless of what that might cost them financially or career-wise, or friends or opportunities that might cost them. They stuck with their friend just the same. And that's a true friend. And there's not enough out there. We need a lot more of those in the world. And so to Alec Baldwin and Scarlett Johansson, I say thank you. Thank you for showing us what a true friend should be. Two more, I know. Keep it moving. All right, but this is, I love these. Chris Krebs, all right? He worked for the Department of Homeland Security and was one of their main election security officials, and for reporting the fact that there were no patterns of fraud in the election, and that this was one of the most secure elections in U.S. history. He was fired, and a GOP politician actually called for him to be summarily executed. Yep, that's right. So I will say, Mr. Krebs, you got guts, and you are a real patriot for taking a stand and doing your job, doing it with honor, performing it honestly and ethically, in spite of the threats and the cost to your career. You are an American hero, and we thank you. We thank you for having the courage and the honor to do the right thing when so many others have not. And finally, our last one of the night. I saved him for last. I won't say he's the best for last, but he does have a special place here, and I'm glad he's here. And that is Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont. When he lost the primary to Biden, he put his full support behind him to help win the election. Now, if Bernie had been bitter, if he pulled like a Trump and denied the results of the primary, or he made a big stink about losing, he could have pulled a lot of Bernie supporters and Bernie bros away from voting for Biden. And it may possibly even given the election to Trump because of that. But Bernie didn't do that. He did the right thing. He did what was best for the country. He did what was best for the party and for the country. He did the right thing. He put his ego aside and he supported the man who won the primary, Joe Biden. So Bernie, for always sticking to your guns, being true to what you believe, and you are a man who is true to what you believe, and putting your disappointment of a primary loss aside to help Joe Biden win the White House and get Trump out, you, sir, have earned a special place of honor in history indeed. Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Thank you. So, let's say, thank you, Senator Sanders. So, didn't mean to demote him there. All right, this is the last topic. This is it. I promise my rant will end soon, but I think this is important for us to cover too. And this topic is called We Have to Pay. Yes, both for our sins and our bills. Everything we want comes at a cost. And we can't have it all. Sorry, we can't. And if you haven't figured that out already, well, yeah, that's just in the movies, guys. You just don't get around that. You got to pay for everything. And whether it's for the wrongs you committed, yep, you're going to pay for those. One way or the other. If not now, later, you will pay. But for the things you want and things you need, you're going to pay. And it's time for all of us, individually and as a society, to get real about those costs, right? If you want good health care, you're going to have to pay for it. If you want strong national defense, you're going to have to pay for it. If you want clean water, clean air, if you want a stable environment that is not in the throes of out-of-control climate change, you got to pay for that, right? Everything we want, we have to pay for. These things come at a cost. And we have to figure out how that's going to be. And we can't have everything we want. So we've got to pick and choose. There's a lot of stuff we're going to have to get rid of. And we're going to have to make some really, really adult decisions about what those things are, what those important priorities really are. And we're going to have to start thinking about the things that we need to lose, to get rid of, that we don't really need. And we're probably going to be talking a lot about that in season 2, because there's a lot of things we need to do and a lot of things we need to improve and move forward on. right? And there's a lot of things we need to spend money on to fix things, like say our healthcare system, or the criminal justice system, or the environment. These things are all going to be very costly, and we still have to maintain a strong defense, right, to keep our country safe. We do have some dangerous adversaries that we do need to be aware of and prepared to deal with. So these are very expensive things, and we have to be real about what can we afford to do. We can't have it all, right? So what do we sacrifice and what do we keep? And it's time that we really start thinking about that. And that we're going to have to compromise. We're going to have to give up. Everybody's going to have to give up a little bit. Some taxes are going to have to go up on most people. It's not just going to be the rich, right? People are going to have to pay more in taxes, right, to fund some of these programs, right? But the trade-off is you get better air, right? Or you get a better transportation system, or you get better infrastructure. You get a better healthcare system. You get a cleaner, safer environment. But you got to pay for these things. These things come at a cost, right? And if you pay for them, there's other things you can't do that you could before, right? You might not be able to take the kind of vacation you did before the taxes went up, right? You might not be able to buy that big screen this year, right? Or you maybe wanted to get that new shotgun that you might have to hold off on. All like little things like that. There will be some sacrifices that we all have to make. But when you weigh those little sacrifices against, well, I can't get health care. If I get sick and go to the hospital, I'm going to be broke, right? That's not acceptable, right? That, every year I'm in danger of being burned to death by a wildfire or killed by, another hurricane that's more powerful, and more hurricanes are more frequent and more powerful, right? These things are happening, and they can't be denied. Every year things are getting warmer and warmer, and the climate's becoming more stable. We're going to have to take action. We've put it off for 40 years already, and we've waited too long. And the longer that we wait, the more expensive it's going to be for us to fix it. So we have to start taking action now, because the longer we wait, the more expensive and desperate it's going to get. And if you don't want a huge, ginormous, crazy government takeover, or like insane World War II taxation levels where the government's taxing you at 70 or 80 or 90% at the top, income brackets, because that's what was happening in the 40s and 50s. Those were the top income bracket levels for taxation. If you don't want, they had to do it. They had no choice. They needed the money to fight these wars and to fight the depression, right? And to fund all the development after World War II, to fund the space race, and the Cold War, for all the bad things that came with that, right? It's not all good. A lot of the Cold War was absolute nonsense. But we also have to admit, Russia was extremely dangerous adversary. But we also did our part to antagonize them, it could be argued. So that is another discussion for another time. But anyway, regardless, we have to pay. So start thinking about what is most important to you, and what are the things that you can give up, because you're going to have to give up some stuff. We all are. All of us, right? We've already had to give up stuff, right? Because of COVID, because we weren't prepared, because we didn't have enough people over in China working with WHO, right? We weren't ready. Because we didn't have enough scientists working in the government and enough virologists working on understanding these pathogens, we weren't ready. Because we had a federal government and a president who refused to use the federal government's powers properly, we did not end or stop or slow the spread when we could have. Our approach completely failed, right? And we paid a price for that failure. Had we done it right, had we been prepared. So much of this could have been avoided. Now, not everything, right? There will always be pandemics, and maybe in another 100 years there'll be another one, but it could be sooner, and likely will be sooner, because the way we're encroaching on wildlands and jungles throughout the world, we're getting exposed to all types of pathogens that have existed that we just never encountered before. So likely this will happen again. We need to be prepared for it. Otherwise, we will pay. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Those are the topics. I'm really glad you joined me, and I'm actually just really, really grateful. This is it. This is it for season 1 of the breakdown. And it's been one jacked up year, right? But we're almost through it. So just hang in there. Just keep it together. Keep social distancing and masking until you get the vaccine. Just hang in there. Stay strong. Don't be the reason some person unnecessarily gets sick or dies. But I do want to say thank you to all of you who have listened. I'm really grateful for that. It's been really wonderful doing season 1 of the podcast for you. And I really thank you. I thank you for choosing to spend some of your precious time. I know it is precious. And I thank you for that. That means a lot. And we'll be back with season 2 in January with lots of new things to talk about. And in the meantime, you can check out all of season 1 wherever you find podcasts. But you can also check us out on YouTube as well. So just remember, just to take good care of each other, honor and respect each other, and we can go so much further than we ever imagined. And I think you know it's true. I look forward to talking with you again soon. Happy holidays to you and your family. Take care.